Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to be going over the guns and weapons of Realm Royale. Let's start with the weapons. There are a few different categories and rarities of each weapon. The order goes common, which have a gray aura, rare, which have a blue aura, epic, which will be purple, and legendary, which will have an orangish kind of goldish glow to it. All weapons besides legendary weapons can be found in common areas. Legendary weapons, to my knowledge, can only be found in golden chest drops, but the only exception is legendary class weapons, which can either be found in drops or made in the forge. First of all, we can start off with the most primitive weapon, the crossbow. The crossbow can be found commonly in chests in most major towns. It can be decent if it's picked up with a rarity of green or over, but it is mainly used in short to mid-range skirmishes due to its bullet speed and in drop. The common crossbow fires 1.8 shots per second, doing 300 damage per hit. The rare crossbow will do 75 more damage, doing a total of 375 damage per hit. The epic crossbow will do a total of 450 damage at 1.8 shots per second. And finally we come to the legendary crossbow, and the legendary crossbow does 75 more damage, totaling 525 damage at 1.8 shots per second. Next we move on to pistols. There are two pistols, the poison pistol and the revolvers. The poison pistol fires multiple rounds per trigger pull. It has a low range but has damage over time, which can be nice if you hit your target but they get away. The poison pistol only comes in three rarities: common, rare, and epic. The common pistol does 28 damage at 1.3 shots per second. The rare pistol does 35 damage at 1.3 shots per second. And finally, the epic pistol does 42 damage at 1.3 shots per second. Over to the revolver. It's a pretty average gun and can be found almost anywhere. This gun does come in all four rarities: common, rare, epic, and legendary. The base weapon starts off at 220 damage at 2.2 shots per second. Next we have the rare, putting out 312 damage at 2.2 shots per second. The epic does 375 damage at 2.2 shots per second. And finally, the most powerful obviously is the legendary, which produces almost 2 times the amount of damage as the common stage, doing 436 damage at 2.2 shots per second. Next we have rifles. There are two different types of rifles: the Heirloom Rifle, and I just call it the plain rifle, which kind of looks like an old shotgun to me. But that plain old standard rifle comes in 4 different rarity types: common, rare, epic, and legendary. It can be used mid to long range, but it has some decent bullet lag on it. But moving on to the stats, the common will deal 400 damage at 1.3 shots per second. The rare variant will do 500 damage at 1.1 shots per second. Epic will bump up another 100 and deal 600 damage at 1.1 shots per second. And finally, the legendary will cap out at 700 damage at the standard 1.1 shots per second. To the Heirloom Rifle, the Heirloom Rifle is pretty much a sniper without a scope. While holding ADS, you get a pretty nice long range zoom, and it's also one of my favorite guns to use in mid and long range combat. As the last rifle, it has all 4 rarity types. To start off with the common, it does 400 damage base at 1.3 shots per second, which is a little slower than the other rifle, but the rare will do 500 damage at 1.3 shots per second. Epic will produce 600 damage at 1.3 shots per second. And finally, the legendary will do 700 damage at, you guessed it, 1.3 shots per second. Moving on to shotguns, there's one type of shotgun, but it gets a little bit more complicated as you move up with the damage scale and rarity types. You start off with 500 base damage at 1 shot per second, moving up to 625 damage at 1 shot per second with the rare type. Next, it will be 750 damage at 1 shot per second on the epic type. And finally, we move way up to 825 damage with the legendary type at 1 shot per second. So it scales up pretty big there. But last but not least, we have the sword, and the sword ramps up in damage pretty nicely, which is the reason why I like to carry it some of the late games if I get in a sticky situation. But starting off at common, it'll deal 550 damage at 1.3 swings per second. Moving to rare, it'll deal 700 damage at 1.3 swings per second. Next is epic at 850 damage at 1.3 swings per second. And finally, my favorite version is the legendary variant. This sword will deal 1000 damage at 1.3 swings per second. So it's basically a 2-shot to anybody in late game, which is pretty cool if you can get close to them. But that's pretty much it, guys, for the legendary class weapons. I'm either going to make it in a separate video or add it to the video when I make the class kind of overview. So make sure you guys are subscribed if you guys want to see that. I really appreciate you guys coming to watch. So hope you guys subscribe, and I'll see you next time.